back, we'll take a look at what he's proposed as far as gun legislation, what he would like to see happen in the future. But we would rather not see these things come down by executive order. It really should come through Congress.
And speaking of Congress, why has Congress been so paralyzed in addressing this issue, given that many polls show that overwhelming majority of Americans support legislation such as universal background checks? I guess, what are you and Senate Republicans, willing or prepared to do to address what the president called an epidemic and a national embarrassment?
Well, I think what we need to do is actually sit down and be able to work together. I would bring up the issue of the Violence Against Women Act, which I have been leading on the Republican side and working in the last Congress with Dianne Feinstein about. We actually did have discussions about gun legislation in that particular bill. And you know what? Because I was in an election cycle, the leader, Chuck Schumer, of the Democratic Party, told Dianne Feinstein, stop working with joni-ernst. So whenever we do try and come together and find a solution, leadership needs to get out of the way. We need to find what is reasonable and what is right in moving forward. So we're happy to have those discussions. But again, I want to make sure that we are protecting law-abiding citizens' rights and find a way forward. So we're willing to take a look, but we have a lot of folks that are very concerned about this issue, and that Democrats will go too far in trying to strip away rights, and we can't allow that.
Okay. And then lastly on this topic, what's your reaction to Governor Reynolds signing legislation that would make handgun carry permits and background checks on unlicensed sales optional, and criticisms from Democrats that argue that it represents a reversal of common sense safety measures?
Well, again, that's a state issue, and while I haven't read the law as it was signed in, again, if you are a law-abiding citizen, I think your Second Amendment rights should be upheld.
Is there any concern that Iowa's gun legislation might clash with proposed amendments from President Biden?
Well, this would be an Iowa law, and that would be an executive order. And an executive order, it's not law. It is an executive order. It will stay in place as long as President Biden keeps it in place. But I am almost certain that you will see lawsuits coming out on these executive orders, because it could potentially infringe upon, again, law-abiding citizens' rights.
Can you tell us what the status is of the president's infrastructure plan in Congress, and what river communities like Davenport potentially could see in terms of needed investment for locks and dams and river infrastructure?
Exactly, and the plan is proposed by President Biden is largely focused on things that we don't typically think of as infrastructure. So only 6% of this so-called infrastructure plan actually focuses on roads and bridges. There is more in this package for electric vehicles than our roads and our waterways, since you bring up locks and dams. Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois and I have worked on proposals for our locks and dams, and I do hope that President Biden would say this is an issue that needs to be bipartisan. Let's go back and take a look at the work that we did in the Environment and Public Works Committee in the last Congress, because we had a water resource bill. We also had a highway reauthorization bill that came out of our Senate EPW committee 21-0, meaning every Republican, me, Tammy Duckworth, we all agreed on that particular piece of legislation. I wish that President Biden would come back to us and say, you know what, folks, come together in a bipartisan way, craft legislation that focuses on infrastructure, not a lot of fancy, extraneous policies that the Democrats want to see. Let's focus on infrastructure. Yeah. Any other